Welcome to our morning devotions as we continue thinking about some of the most popular verses in the Bible. And going by Google search, the one we're looking at today is the second most popular Bible verse that people search up. And it's actually joined popular, so we're looking at the next time at the one that joins with it. But the verse is, and it surprises me, Jeremiah 29 and verse 11, which says this: "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope." Now, as we think of this verse, a verse that's really encouraged God's people down through the centuries. It's important, though, to always get a verse in its right setting and context. Because if you just take a verse out of the Bible and just look at a verse by itself, not thinking about the background in which it was originally put, you can get false meanings and even false promises. And some have taken from this verse that it's a verse that means that they will always prosper, things will always go well for them, and things will not be difficult. Well, that doesn't fit in with what the rest of the Bible teaches, and that is not what this verse is saying at all. So to understand this marvellous verse, let's first of all get into the background of what is happening here. It's part of the prophecy of Jeremiah. Jeremiah was described as a weeping prophet because he was the prophet that spoke about God's people going into captivity. God's people indeed being carried away from Jerusalem into Babylon for 70 years. And this verse is part of a letter that Jeremiah sends to the exiles in Babylon, a letter to encourage them. And it's a letter that's saying, yes, they're going into captivity. Yes, they're to spend 70 years in captivity, but God isn't finished with them. God is going to bring them back. God is going to bring them through these trials to better days. So that's the background behind this. Let's look just a wee bit closer at the verse. God says to them, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord." And this world is not a world of chance. The events which happen in our lives individually, or the events that happen in the world on a world scale, are part of a plan of God. God is the one who's in control. And even in this world of apparent chaos and evil, God is working out his plans. And so God is saying here, listen, I have plans. And at the very heart of his plans are his people. It speaks about in Ephesians 1 about how Christ, when he ascended into heaven, he was seated at the right hand. He was in charge of everything, over every authority, for the sake of the church. God rules for the sake of his people. So we have to see that these plans are for God's people. So to be part of this, you have to be part of God's people. You have to be a person with a saving faith in Jesus Christ. You just can't take this verse and not be a believer and say, well, God's going to look after me. No, this is part of a promise for the people of God. God has a plan for the people of God. For those who aren't God's people, for those who are not saved, God has a plan too. But it's a plan of judgment. It's a plan that includes his wrath. So the key thing here is to realize this is for God's people, and you must be part of God's people. He goes on and says, plans for welfare and not for evil. One of the most important things when you become a Christian and trust in Christ is realizing that God's intentions towards you are filled with love and benevolence. He is a God who wants to do what is good for his people. He is a God who wants to do that which is for their welfare. He takes no delight in evil, and God will never cause his children to shed a needless tear, the Bible teaches us. So yes, there are times when God will allow his people to go through difficult days. But the heart of God is that he delights in giving what is best to his people. And even those difficult days, it's like a parent. I remember the first time I took my daughter, one of the first times I took my daughter to get one of her injections as a little girl, and she was a wee toddler going in into the nurse, and she was so full of fun and so full, and I just thought, oh, you poor wee mate, you don't know what's in it. Why do I put that through her? Well, as a parent, I did that because I believe it's for her best. And sometimes God allows us to go through difficult days. It's part of He has His reasons for us. We don't understand all these things. But let's always remember this. God's heart towards His people is always one of love. It's one for our welfare. It's one for our good. He doesn't want that which hurts us. He doesn't want that which is evil in our lives. Always remember that. God has no place for evil in our lives. We must always seek that which is good. And then the last part of the verse, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. Go back to the people of God who were in captivity. Things looked absolutely dismal for them. There didn't seem to be much future for them. They're there in Babylon. They were away from Jerusalem. Jerusalem was destroyed. As the people of God, things were not looking good. But God says, I have a future. I have a hope for you. Oh, what a wonderful verse that is. What a wonderful encouragement that is, that God has a plan for His people. And you go through difficult days and things are maybe feeling struggling. All you see is darkness. One day the light will shine when you're trusting in Jesus. He's the one who gives you future. He's the one that causes the difficult days to pass. He'll cause difficult days to pass that are in this world. The difficult days of this world will pass altogether. And we'll go to be with Him in that glorious world to come, where real future, real hope is to be found. Let me just say a wee thing about that word hope there. The Bible uses the word hope differently from the way we do. Someone might be doing their driving test and they hope to pass it. Or they're getting results of exam. I hope to pass it. They're getting results from a medical examination. I hope that the results are good. We're hoping. It's wishful thinking. When the Bible speaks of hope, it's speaking of something that is sure and certain. And that is sure and certain in Jesus Christ, as we trust in Him. So we will have a future. We will have hope. We have a God who looks after us. He doesn't promise things will always be easy, but He promises that He'll bring us through the difficult days to a new world of future and hope that is wonderful. Hold on to this verse. Hold on to this promise. Let's just hear it one last time. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans for welfare, not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. Amen.